Hi, everybody. Here is part 2 of the White Stag. The untamed wilderness closed on the broad path broken by fire and crushed by sharp hooves of horses. Fresh green sprouts grew on charred roots. Vines covered deserted camping grounds. Black bear and tawny mountain lions stalked their prey once more, unmolested by hunters. Snow fell, and the last traces of men were covered with a thick white blanket. The people of Hunar and Magyar had left the headlands of the wild Altainula forever. The snow-capped peaks had looked at their coming and going with indifference. In 12 moons they had forgotten them. To the everlasting mountains they meant no more than the passing of dry leaves blown by the wind. But the people had not forgotten the mountains, nor had they forgotten old Nimrod. The memory of his strength was like an armor around them. Their belief in Hadur, like a magic sword, nothing could resist. Wild beasts prowling in the wilderness, hostile spirits hovering in the mountain caves, hot sun blistering the plains, roaring rivers, or howling blizzards were powerless against the tribe. Relentlessly they pressed on toward the promised land. Hunar and Magyar became worthy successors to their father. They led the tribe safely to the gentle hills by the misty blue lake. For years they stayed there, undisturbed, gaining in strength and numbers. In the most beautiful spot of the new land they built the altar. There fragrant herbs of the fields were burning day and night. Their great festivals were held every spring when the ever-smoldering embers were stirred into roaring flames, when offerings of game and fruit were brought to Hadur. Then every man, woman, and child would gather and listen to the minstrels as they sang of the past and the future. Old songs wailing sinister, like the voice of hostile spirits in the wilderness of Altan Ulla. New songs full of joy and laughter, like the laughter of good fairies who lived by the misty blue lake. Rousing songs full of faith of the coming of Attila. The story of the White Stag became a song too, a song everyone knew by heart. And there was the silent question in every heart, would the White Stag come again to lead them toward the promised land? Then one day Hunar and Magyar saw the White Stag again. They had been all day on a hunt. Descending darkness found them still, away from camp. They spurred their horses on, for it was not wise for any man to spend the ghost hour in the woods. They rode as fast as they dared through the thick, dark forest, but the ghost hour was upon them. Green-eyed owls, restless spirits of wicked men, hooted at them from the branches. Wild cats snarled in the underbush, and lynchens, hoof marks of the devil shimmered on old tree stumps. Gray mist crawled from the damp ground, blotting out paths and landmarks. The forest grew denser, trees blocked the paths, brambles tore at them, hanging vines caught at them. Hunar and Magyar reined in their trembling horses and peered around, trying to penetrate the darkness. They knew that they were lost in this strange, ghostly forest. Suddenly, Hunar exclaimed, "Look, brother, to your right, the White Stag!" Shimmering with white against the dark trees stood the stag not far away. He seemed to float on the rolling mist, to move with it slowly, silently away. "Follow him," whispered Magyar, and his words echoed from the trees in the suddenly friendly forest. "Follow him!" "Follow him," whispered the leaves. "Follow him," gurgled a hidden spring. "Follow him," sighed the wind. Thorny branches coiled out of the way, and vines crept back to them through. Always in sight, but never letting them nearer, moved the White Stag silently. Trees fell behind. Now they were riding on a grassy hill. A brook tinkled like silver bells, and the breeze sang sweeter than the flutes of minstrels. A cluster of white birches gleamed at the top of the hill. There the White Stag turned to look at Hunar and Magyar. Then they lost sight of him. When they reached the trees, he was nowhere in sight, but the sound of bells and singing grew stronger. Now it seemed to be coming from the quivering silvery leaves of birches, such a lilting, luring magic sound that they stopped to listen. "Do you hear laughter and singing, brother?" asked Hunar. "Do you see fairies dancing, brother?" asked Magyar. As if their questions had drawn a veil from their eyes, an enchanting scene opened before them. The white birch trees formed a ring enclosing a smooth green carpet of grass and flowers. Dancing in this ring were two beautiful maidens, fair as none whom Hunar and Magyar had ever seen before. Their long hair was pale gold like the new moon. They wore wreaths of flowers in their hair and were clad in pure white garments. All around under the trees sat gay little dark men, coaxing sweet music out of their reed pipes. The eyes of Hunar and Magyar flashed together. Moon maidens, whispered Magyar. Moon maidens, those strange changeling fairies who lived in the white birch trees and were never seen in the daylight. Moon maidens who, if caught by the gray hour of dawn, could never go back to the fairyland again. Moon maidens who brought good luck to men. We must detain them. The ghost hour is waning, whispered Hunar. Silently they dismounted and tiptoed closer to the dancing fairies. They were inside the ring of trees when a shivering sigh went through the branches and the music stopped abruptly. Somewhere a cock crowed. The two fairies stood motionless in the ring, gazing at Hunar and Magyar with frightened eyes. A scurrying, scampering sound came from the underbrush. Where the little dark musicians had been a moment ago were only gnarled roots and dead stumps of trees. The two brothers smiled at the maidens and spoke to them gently. Hunar held out his hand. One of the maidens touched it with her fingers. Her touch was cool and light, as if a bird's wing had brushed his hand. She turned to her sister and said something in a strange language. Now they seemed to have lost their fear because they smiled and let Hunar and Magyar lead them to their horses. At the sight of the animals, they gave a little surprised laugh and exclaimed with joy when they were lifted into the saddle. The first rays of the sun cut a shimmering path through the trees. In the distance, Hunar and Magyar could see the dark blue of the lake and the pale blue of the thin columns of smoke rising from many campfires. A lark shot into the air and burst into song. White daisies and blue cornflowers opened sleepy eyes to smile at them as they passed. A belated whippoorwill ran with them, hidden in the tall grass, crying, "Here they come! Here they come!" Near the camp, a young boy jumped from the bushes and ran ahead on the path, crying, "Here they come!" People ran from the tents and campfires, excited, happy, eager, crying, "Moon maidens! Hunar and Magyar have captured moon maidens!" They were surrounded, exclaimed over, marveled at. The story of how they found the maidens had to be told. Only the boy, who saw them coming, was suddenly quiet. He stood apart from the crowd, motionless, rigid, gazing ahead with wide open eyes. His face was very pale. Hunar noticed the boy. He walked over to him and laid his hand gently upon his head. "Why do you look at us so strangely, Demos?" he asked. The boy pointed a shaking finger at the moon maidens. "The white herons! I saw them last night." His voice was hardly more than a whisper, yet it brought a hush over the crowd. People became serious, and a woman exclaimed, "He dreamed strange dreams last night. I heard him moan." She ran to the boy. "Tell us about your dream, my son." Demos shook his head. It was not a dream, mother. I was not asleep." "What did you see, Demos? Tell us," urged Hunar. The boy began to speak haughtily in a low voice. "Last night I went to sleep in my mother's tent. I don't know how long I had slept when I felt someone touch my eyes, and I heard a call, 'Demos! Demos! Wake up and see! See and remember! Remember and speak!' I opened my eyes. There was no one in the tent, and it was very dark outside. I heard the call again, then I went out. There was a light by the altar, and I saw an old man standing on the steps. I've seen him before someplace, but I cannot remember when or where. He was very tall, taller than Hunar, taller than Magyar. His hair was long and white, and his eyes." The boy faltered for a moment, then his voice grew stronger. "He called me with his eyes. He called me, and I went to him. He spoke to me again, but his voice was not the voice of a man. It came from the ground and the sky. It came from the trees and stones and from my own heart. It came from everywhere. Nimrod, groaned someone in the crowd. His voice was like that. The boy went on. The voice said, "Open your eyes, Deimos, and see. See and remember. I saw the embers on the altar glow brighter. I saw flames lick higher and higher, slim, narrow flames pointed like swords. I followed them with my eyes, and then I saw 2 great eagles flying above. Between them flew 2 white herons, whiter than the snow and slim, beautiful to behold. For a long time they flew together. Then I lost sight of them. Again I heard the voice, 'See, Deimos, and remember.' I saw 1 eagle and 1 white heron, and then they seemed to merge together until there was only 1 white bird, a white eagle. I heard the voice, 'Hear, Deimos, see, Deimos, see, hear, and remember.' I heard the clash of swords and the whine of flying arrows. I heard thundering hoofbeats and the battle cry of warriors. I saw the white eagle change color, become red, red as blood. He swooped down until his talons touched the flames and soared up again with a flaming sword clutched in his claws. The voice roared from the ground and the sky, the stones and the trees. 'Deimos, remember and speak.' The boy stopped. He was trembling like a leaf. As if the cloak of magic had fallen from him, he stood there, just a frightened, tired little boy again. Once more he began in a whisper. I was frightened. Everything became dark and I ran. I don't know where. When light came, I saw Hunar and Magyar, the white herons perched on their shoulders. I cried, 'Here they come!' And suddenly his voice broke and he finished with a childish sob. And suddenly there weren't any white herons, only pale-faced girls with yellow hair. And now I can't see anything." He stumbled forward, groping with his hands. "Mother, where are they? Where are you?" Hunar sprang forward and caught the boy in his arms. He looked into his eyes intently. Then he turned to the silent, awed crowd. "The child is blind. He has seen what no human eyes can see, the future, and its glare has blinded him. Do not grieve for him, for now we have a prophet, one who will warn us and guide us, one who, like my father Nimrod, saw the coming of Attila." He turned to the boy's mother. "Lead him to the tent and let him rest." An old warrior spoke now. "The boy saw more than that, Hunar. He saw the mating of twin eagles of Hadur with white herons of moon maidens." Now everyone looked at the strange maidens. They were standing quietly under a tree, unfrightened, smiling and talking to each other, strange pale maidens with golden hair. Hunar and Magyar had brought them. The twin eagles of Hadur had found them. Slim, graceful maidens, beautiful to behold, with their wispy white garments spread out like the wispy feathers of white herons or the rays of the pale moon. But they were warm and friendly like any human girl. White herons or moon maidens, fairies or humans, who were they? Who could tell? In time, the moon maidens ceased to be the cause for wonder and curiosity. From the day when Hunar and Magyar had brought them to the camp, children of the tribe followed them wherever they went. They were so beautiful and gay. Women of the tribe came to love them. They were so gentle and winning. Men respected them. They could heal the wounded and ease the sick. They learned to speak the language of the tribe and were called by the names Deimos, the blind boy, gave them, Tundi and Scylla. Deimos was happy only when he was near Tundi. For hours he would sit by her side and listen to her singing. Her voice is as soft as the downy wings of a bird. He would say, and the people remembered again his dream of white herons. He was held in respect and awe, for was he not given the power to see the future? So it was Deimos who lighted the torch of marriage for the wedding of Hunar and Tundi, and Magyar and Scylla. It was Deimos who poured clear spring water on their hands, joined over the flaming torch. His eyes could not see them, but he could hear their simple sacred vows. Through fire and water I come to thee. Not fire nor water shall take me from thee. And it was Damas who 12 moons later carried Hunar's son up the altar steps, held him high for everyone to see. It was Damas who on that day named him Bendiguz, the white eagle. 15 years had passed, 15 peaceful years for the tribe by the misty blue lake. Young Bendiguz grew up into a tall, brawny boy who could ride the wildest horses, who could shoot as straight and true as the best hunters. Boys of his age and even those who were much older soon accepted him as the best among them. When he was 10 years old, the peaceful years for the tribe came to an end. A rainless, windy spring was followed by a dry, sultry summer. Green pastures turned a dusty brown, leaves hung limp on the drooping branches, fruit blackened and dropped, sunk into the ground. Day after day the sun came up, a sullen red, and flooded the valley with shimmering deadly heat. Spring ceased to flow, and the water in the lake receded, leaving evil-smelling slime on its banks. Game deserted the stricken land, traveling toward the west in droves. People grew gaunt and hollow-eyed. Many of them became ill. They remembered the dark days in the wild mountains, the suffering, the starvation, and they knew that the time had come to move. No one questioned the command of Hunar and Magyar to pull up the tents, to prepare for a long journey. Old and young worked in the relentless heat, and one day at dawn the caravan stood ready, but they were not one great united, but the nameless tribe, as when they had followed Hunar and Magyar out of the wilderness of Altan Allah. In the long, peaceful years, a slight but gradually widening rift had appeared in the once unbroken loyalty to the two brothers. The more reckless adventurous among them looked for guidance to Hunar, who knew no fear and no pity for the weak. Others loved the sober, gentle, serious Magyar. The birth of Bendiguz made the rift still deeper. Until now, both brothers had a following who would take command from no one but their own chosen leader. They called themselves the Huns and the Magyars now. And so they left the once happy fertile valley, still brother tribes united by one purpose and one belief, but ready to separate at the will of their leaders. Hunar and Magyar were hardly aware of this. Twin eagles of Hadar, they rode together, spurred boots touching, their eyes turned toward the promised land. Only at Hunar's side now rode his son, fierce, fearless young Bendiguz. Often on the long journey he left his father's side to ride ahead, far, far ahead of the slowly moving caravan, his fair hair flying, his short white cape streaming out behind him in the wind like great wings. It was at these times that the words of Nimrod lived again in the hearts of the old warriors. After Hunar and Magyar are gone, there shall be another leader, and it will be his son, greatest of all, with a mighty voice and wings red as blood, who will lead you into the promised land. Here he was, trying out his wings, the white eagle Bendiguz. Okay, guys, so that's the end of chapter 2 or part 2. So just do your narration in your notebooks and bring it to class on Tuesday. And don't forget to bring in your coat of arms also for Tuesday to present in class. Okay, guys, have a great week. Blessings.